Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fruitful Trees. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We are with Alex at Tropical Acres Farms, and we are going to be doing a live Q&A. We're going to be taking your questions. Just post your questions on the side chat. Everybody, if you can hear us, give us a thumbs up in the message so we know you can hear us. And we have exciting announcements. And thank you all for subscribing and being here as we get ready for the mango season 2025. Depending when you're watching this, it's going to benefit us always, regardless of 2025 or not. I have a bunch of videos coming up. I actually have a great video with the Fruitful Five with Alex and Julian, and they're coming up here soon, and Bobby, and it's going to be great. But tonight we have Alex here, and Alex is going to answer your questions. But before Alex answers your questions, I got the thumbs up, so I know you could all hear us. Let's say hello to Alex. Alex, how you doing, man? Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us tonight and thanks for having me, Paul.
Alex, a lot of people, thank you for being here. A lot of people have so many questions for you tonight. But one of the questions I'm getting often is, and we're going to start off right with this question, everybody, is last year we had an amazing event, a mango festival here for Florida mangoes in South Florida. And people were there. They loved it. Unfortunately, it rained and it was really hot. But people are asking me, what's your plans this year? Are we going to have another Florida Mango Festival, and when is it? Can you share some details on the progress with that?
Yeah, so we get asked this question quite a bit after the success of last year's event. And so I'm excited to announce that the Florida Mango Festival in 2025 this year will be held on Sunday, June 29th in West Palm Beach at the Palm Beach County Convention Center. This venue will be completely indoors. It's going to be air conditioned and protected from the elements. Um, Back when the Florida Mango Forum used to hold their convention back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they used to hold the event indoors because they knew how oppressive the weather could be in the summer. And we decided that we wanted to explore a venue that offered attendees and vendors alike, protection from the elements and a certain level of comfort uh, and so we're really excited. We're expecting dozens of Florida farms and small nurseries throughout the state to be taking part in this event, selling their fruit and their trees, along with lots of other mango-related vendors. So this event is going to be a tremendous opportunity if you're a mango enthusiast to interact with and meet a lot of the growers across our great state of Florida. This is kind of an effort to unite everybody in under one roof. And there's, of course, going to be educational talks and lectures and panels designed to help people who are both people who are new to mangoes and people who are actually relatively experienced and just want to learn more information. Um, and then, because last year we had a really wonderful lineup of speakers. Last year we had Gary Zill, we had Jonathan Crane, we had Walter Zill, myself, Dale Erickson, Julian Lara, were all some of the speakers that we had last year, and we hope to have some of them and more this year. And of course, we had a wonderful mango display that we hope to build upon this year with every single mango variety that we could get our hands on and display to the public and just show you the world of mangoes. But there's also other things we want to do this year, like have a perhaps like a meetup for the online mango community for those of you that maybe post in the various Facebook groups or participate like on the Tropical Fruit Forum or one of those venues online. Maybe we'll have like a meetup for those people who participate in those things. We'd like to do like an identify your mango booth for people that have a mango in their yard and they don't know what kind it is and they want us to identify it or want people to identify it. Um, we want people to be able to submit new seedlings for evaluation. If you've got a new special mango that you're very confident is a seedling and not an established cultivar, This is how new varieties get discovered. It's when people submit their seedlings to others for evaluation and promotion and whatnot. So, and then maybe possibly like a scion exchange for those of you that are into grafting and want to exchange scions with other people that grow mangoes. So things like that. Anyway, so we're really excited about this year's event. We hope to have tickets available within the next month or so, possibly sooner, and lots of more details to come. But go ahead and circle that date on your calendar, June 29th in West Palm Beach. Um, and hopefully we'll see all of you there, as many as you that we can get to participate. It's just such a great opportunity for all of us to meet one another and exchange ideas and learn from each other. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Absolutely, and exciting. And yes, oh, we already got a question about hopefully there'll be more tickets available. You will be able to get into this event. We'll have a lot more tickets available this year, and it's indoors. It's going to be comfortable, and I'm looking forward to it so much because last year I had a blast, and this year is going to be even better. So stay tuned for that. As soon as we get more details, I'll be putting out the video. And we are looking also for people that are interested in volunteering, sponsoring, or vendoring and having a booth there. Definitely contact me, everybody. My email is paul@rawlife.com if you want to either be a volunteer or be a vendor or a sponsor. And I'll definitely get your information. So I just posted my email below for that. All right. Now tonight we're here excited. Alex is going to take more Q&A. I love doing these Q&As, and I definitely want to remind you I've done them in the past. So please go back and look at the ones I did with Alex on his website. We covered so much stuff here, and you could just go to this YouTube channel and see those. Last announcement I want to make is Tuesday at 1 p.m. I'll be doing a live Q&A with Chris from Truly Tropical. So if you're available to join us live on Tuesday and ask Chris some questions from Truly Tropical, mark your calendar for that. We'll be doing that in the daytime, so that'll be great. All right, so we're gonna get to the questions with Alex now. First question, Alex, is from Make Ye Fi and says, "Can you tell me which mango types will grow in DeBerry, Florida, Zone 9B, north of Orlando?"
Yeah, I know where DeBerry is, and I've been there before. It's up near there's a big natural preserve in that area and some pretty substantially sized lakes, from what I remember. It's just north of Orlando. Um, I never grew a mango there, obviously, but that's a fairly humid area from what I can recall, or at least it ought to be a pretty humid area. So I would say focus on stuff with very good disease resistance, but specifically anthracnose resistance there. So I can list off a number that should perform reasonably well there. Things like Pickering, Sweet Tart, Sassy Love, um, Cack, Little Gem, Lemon Meringue, um, Duncan, Philippine, Fairchild. Those are all some. Angie, that's another one that should do pretty well there. Um, and there's certainly others, but that's a good list to start with. Um, let's see what I guess I probably didn't include too many later season ones there. Neelam will do fine there without any spraying or anything like that. It's a real late season mango that's got a lot of good disease resistance. So those are a few that have real good natural disease resistance. And another thing is that in that area, you can get freezes and frosts. I don't know how cold it got in DeBerry like this last um, January, but you might consider trees that aren't as aggressive and perhaps will be easier to either keep in a container or grow them in a place in your yard where like you can construct like a structure over them to prevent damage from frost or freezes. So that's another factor to consider. Even though it doesn't freeze as much there as it used to, it definitely freezes less. But so those are some suggestions. Next question.
Great. All right. Next question is, would it make a difference if I bring my mango pH levels alkaline so it resists powdery mildew?
No, I don't think so. If we're talking about soil pH, they will absorb um, a lot more of the nutritional content of your soil and whatever you happen to be applying to it if the pH is actually on the more acidic side. In fact, in West Palm Beach, our soil pH is about 5.8 or 5.9 or something like that. Mangoes do really well in our soil. They're not without any issues or anything like that, but like the ones that are growing in real alkaline conditions down in like the Redland and so parts of Miami-Dade and also parts of Broward County too. Uh, they get so many more nutritional deficiencies, and those trees are so much more likely to be struggling with some sort of health issue in general compared to those growing in more acidic conditions. So I would say it's not worth it trying to in an effort to now maybe they mean like spraying the tree with something to reduce the pH temporarily or something like that, but still I would say there's enough products on the market to prevent powdery mildew that are effective that you don't need to worry about the pH.
Okay. Uh, next one is from John Barink. Would you allow first-year topwork graft on an established tree hold fruit if it has shown good growth and healing?
Probably not. In most instances, it would be rare. Now, I've had Topworks fruit in the first year from grafting. I had an Ping do that once. I remember that had produced like an enormous amount of growth in the time that had been grafted. And I think I probably had grafted it in the earlier part of the year, the prior year as well. So it had kind of a head start. Um, maybe if it's really structurally sound, like you've got a nice multi-inch branch emerging with some complexity to its new canopy. But most of the time, in my own practice, I have stripped off any fruit that have come on new grafts on Topworks that were like less than, only a year old or so, most of the time.
Okay. What are the most cold hardy and most cold sensitive mango varieties for Florida?
Unfortunately, cold hardiness is one of those things with mangoes that there's some mythology around, but in most cases, it's not enough to really matter. I can tell you with cold sensitivity, Julie trees, unfortunately, are fairly cold sensitive, and I've witnessed this personally in the nursery setting, um, both in our own nursery and in other nurseries too, where young Julie plants display cold damage before a lot of the other varieties do. Carrie is also a little sensitive in that regard. We're talking about damage to the foliage here. But as in terms of cold hardiness, I mean, like there's anecdotal evidence for Bailey's Marvel to have slight, and we're talking about very slight differences in cold tolerance. Now, differences do exist. I'm not trying to make it sound like they don't. Okay, there's differences between cultivars and their response to, temperatures, all things being equal, but I don't feel like those differences are substantial enough to make me want to plant a certain variety of mango in an area that might experience periodic freezes. That wouldn't be dictating what I would plant. So, I would just have a plan for protecting that tree or trees. That's more important. And it really frees you up in terms of what kind of varieties you can plant too. So.
Okay. Do you put a lot of focus on soil health in your growth and your grove, trying to make the soil as healthy as possible, or do you feel this affects the flavor of the fruit?
Well, it depends on what you mean by that. Like, when trees are young, when mango trees are young, okay, because we don't treat our other fruit trees the same way we treat our mangoes, okay? And we do grow other species of fruit trees, and we have experience with a bunch of others that we no longer grow. But with mango trees, we'll typically try to amend the soil when they're young, okay, with mulch and, organic matter and so forth. But when they reach production size, we like to stop feeding them that stuff because we want to discourage vegetative growth. And in most cases, there's enough nutritional content available to the tree within the soil, plus what we feed the tree in terms of foliar nutrients and so forth, that we don't feel like we want to add too much in terms of changing the texture of our soil or the amount of organic matter in the soil. They actually do really well in our sugar sand, which is doesn't have a lot of organic matter. In fact, in most cases, people that would look at our soil would say that that's actually agriculturally poor soil for the vast majority of crops, but mangoes thrive in it. So we don't really feel that we need to make a big effort to, try to amend that situation. Now, with other crops like avocados and sapodilla and mamey sapote and green sapote, we absolutely try to add a lot of organic matter, mulch, and so forth to alter our soil a bit and make it a little bit more nutritious and a little bit higher in organic matter content. But those are different species and they respond very differently to their situation than mango trees do. So I hope that answered your question.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can potassium bicarbonate and diconol be sprayed on open flowers, open blooms?
Yes, at least I never had a problem with it. I haven't sprayed a lot of Daconal, but potassium bicarbonate I have. And I never had a problem. It was in an effort to control powdery mildew, by the way. So that's one of the products that's pretty effective against powdery mildew. I no longer use it. I use sulfur because I found it to be more effective against powdery mildew in the long run. But I never had an issue spraying it on open bloom. It never caused any problem, and I don't think Daconil would either, as long as you're applying it at the application rate that's listed. So.
Okay. When controlling anthracnose, can you rotate different brands of formulations or of copper? And in parentheses, it says uh, Cuvar and Norex 75, or should you use fungicides with a different active ingredient,
Yeah, yeah, no,
activate double nickel 55?
yeah, you should not be applying more than one kind of copper product. That's overkill and too much copper, frankly, and it's not really accomplishing anything. I would just stick to one of those products instead of applying more than one, and then apply something different in the rotation, something that's not a copper. There's tons of fungicides on the market that are, you know, but you do want to do some Googling, make sure that it's compatible if you're going to mix them. So, but there's no reason to use two different brands of copper.
Okay, for
Next.
backyard gardeners, would you allow a graft that flushes new growth 5 to 6 times under a year to bring fruit?
This is similar to the first question, right? It depends on how if the branch has like a thickness of several inches, looks strong, and has produced a lot of canopy, then perhaps. If it's rather lanky and doesn't have a lot of foliage on it, or the branch is like thin, like less than a couple inches thick, I would strip the fruit. So
Okay, next question from Russell. What do you think of using these fungicides on mango? Abound, pristine, and switch.
there's some redundancy there with the strobilurine fungicides there. You would just want to pick one of them. I don't remember what switch was, unfortunately. And anyway, I got to be careful about recommending products specifically because there's cautionary things involved here in terms of you know protecting yourself and health and everything. So I'm not going to get too deep into that. All right. Uh, so, but I mean, the first two, you only want to pick one of those. Okay. Anyway, next.
Okay, another question. What can we spray to combat anthracnose in the awkward phase where we have both mangoes and bloom on the tree?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
In the stage where the awkward phase where we have both mangoes and bloom on
Oh, mangoes and bloom. Okay. What can you spray? Well, you can spray all kinds of
to
stuff.
combat anthracnose.
Yeah, the only thing I'd be warn people on, because somebody already mentioned Daconil, um, is chlorothalonil can cause marring on the fruit after it gets to about golf ball size or so. So if you have trees that have bloom and fruit that are like that size, you might want to avoid the daconol, but otherwise most products can be applied at both of those stages. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that because we face that situation every year. Every year we've got trees that have panicles coming out, open flowers, tiny fruit set, and developing fruit on them at the same time. So like this is like a normal regular conundrum with us and it doesn't stop us from spraying. So
Yes, and I want to recommend. I want to recommend to everybody. Alex actually has a consultant service where he helps people that are looking what to spray and the whole program of that. So definitely contact him. I mentioned this in a previous video. It's really helpful. I know people that have done it and benefits from it. So you can get questions answered here, but the best thing is to hire him to come out to your land and check it out. So he has
yeah,
that.
and I can get into more detail on specific products and stuff like that in that sort of setting versus when I'm talking to the general public. So,
Yeah, so it's definitely worth it. So the next question from the Rockaways. If you had to grow a mango somewhere other than Florida, where would you establish your farm?
oh, probably the northwest Pacific coast of Mexico, like Nayarit. I remember Richard Campbell used to consider that like one of the best places on planet Earth to grow a mango, and there was good reasons why. And the fruit that comes from there is absolutely gorgeous. And it's not as cold as California, which kind of inhibits. It makes it more challenging to grow. As clean and beautiful and delicious as mangoes come out in California, you've got your own set of challenges there with how consistently cold and dry it is there. But that part of Mexico, that Northwest Pacific coast of Mexico, is really, really excellent for growing mangoes. From everything, and I haven't actually been there, but like everything that I've learned from other people would strongly suggest that. Um, Besides there, I would say, certain parts of India, perhaps like northern central India, um, because again, that's closer to the mango's native range, of course, for one thing. And secondly, their mango season occurs during the dry part of the year before the rainy season, the monsoon season. So the potential for really high quality fruit is there. Um, and they get pretty consistently cold weather as well, which is a big part of getting mangoes to flower and fruit, in the first place. So that's another area, we're talking about like Uttar Pradesh state, that part of India. Um, and there's probably some other areas that I'm neglecting, but those are two that pop to mind when you ask that question.
Okay. And I want to remind everybody, if you have a question you want to ask, we're going to have a lot of questions. We already have a lot. If you want to get your questions jumping up to the next question, the super chat is open, everybody. So super chat is open if you want to get your question answered soon. And also, there are a good amount of people on, but only 23 likes. And Google will show this to more people if there's more likes. So everybody hit that like button so more people know we're online. Next question. Alex, I'm in Port St. Lucie. I just east of the turnpike. Is it worth removing panicles on my Kerry to hopefully get another bloom or have passed the time? Exclusively male so far.
Yeah, absolutely, it's worth it. You should have done it already if they came out all male from the temperatures we got back in January. It's been a lot warmer now, but it's been dry. We're about to get some cool weather. Hopefully, this is what they're projecting next week. I think maybe starting, um, well, it might be, I guess, technically this week. I'm not even sure at this point. It might be, next weekend or something. But and it's supposed to last at least 5+ days. So typically the temperatures we receive in this part of the month historically aren't quite as cold. And there's a much better shot that that second bloom on the carry, if it occurs, will have at least enough hermaphroditic flowers on it to set a little more fruit. Um, and if your flowers, like for example, our cherry trees also opened up with a lot of males back in the first half of January, but the last couple weeks it's been really nice and warm outside, kind of hot actually, and the nighttime temperatures have been like in the low 70s or upper 60s, and now those cherries are opening up with more female flowers for the last week or so. Remove those panicles and don't water the tree though, and hopefully you'll get a second bloom coming out sometime soon with a better chance of fruit set.
Okay. Uh, my Kent older leaves have developed yellow spotting. Is this due to a CA plus plus deficiency? The other seven varieties are not exhibiting this.
Leaf spotting can be due to a number of different things, and without seeing it in person or whatever, I can't tell you for sure. Sometimes that yellow spotting is bacterial spot. But there's a difference between the foliar bacterial spot and the fruit-borne version of the disease, by the way, so don't get too alarmed if that might be what it is. Sometimes it's due to checkering from micronutrient deficiency. Um, Sometimes I'll see that on plants that have manganese or magnesium deficiency as well, but I can't tell without looking at it. So.
Okay. You guys are awesome. Would like to know which dwarf to medium-sized mango tree variety produces the most mangoes, and what mango varieties produce two or more crops per year?
Dwarf to medium-sized mango that produces the most mangoes. Uh, all right. Well, oh, my wife is listening. She just said little gem. That's I guess, kind of a medium-sized tree. It's definitely not a dwarf tree, though. Um, I hate to sound like a broken record, but Pickering trees produce a lot of fruit typically, and they're pretty dwarf. Besides that, Honeykiss. Man, Honeykiss can make so much fruit, and those are small trees usually. I was blown away by how much fruit they made last year. Just incredible. So that has to be near the top of the list in terms of smaller trees. Neelam trees can make an amazing amount of fruit, and they're pretty small too. You can debate as to whether they're dwarves or not, but they can make a lot of fruit.
Cogswall, right?
Cogswell, yeah, I mean it's certainly a smaller tree. Their yield is going to vary though, depending on location, because you take them
Okay.
to the coast and they can bear pretty well, but then you take them to, Wellington or something, and all of a sudden they're getting a lot of fungus and maybe they're
Okay.
not fruiting as well. So I wouldn't immediately leap to recommend that one. Depends on the person's location. Um, what else? And then how are we grading medium-sized trees?
Sure.
Because
What
we're
about
going
Amorpali that you told me?
Amrapali seems to want to bear pretty well, but it's such a limited sample size with us because we had like part of a top work tree and then we recently top worked another one. It looks very productive and it's definitely a slower growing tree. So maybe, but
Okay.
your mileage may vary. I have to say that a lot with mango.
Sure.
Um, but that's a delicious mango. Amrapali is a really, really high quality fruit. And they're kind of small, but it is very productive in India and other countries too. So maybe some other people can trial it out and we can give a firmer answer as to whether it belongs in that group of really productive dwarfer trees. So anyway, let's move on.
The second part of the question was what varieties produce two or more crops per year?
Uh, I wouldn't count on it, but certain mangoes have been known to do that. Chakanon certainly is known to do that. We grow one called Royal Special, also called Punasa, which is from India. And that one has produced off-season fruit a number of years. Hasn't done it every single year, but it's done it like 3 of the last 4 years or something like that. Um, and it's made a decent number of them in some of those crops, some of the off-season crops. Some other mangoes that are capable of doing it, Thai everbearing, I guess, but our tree actually hasn't produced an off-season crop. I've seen other people's Thai everbearing trees do it. Um, some others that can make off-season fruit. I mean, I've seen Thai mangoes like Namdok Mai do it before, but they've not done it on any kind of consistent basis. I've seen Rosy Gold do it. In fact, I picked a Rosy Gold like 2 weeks ago or less, that had made some off-season fruit. But I wouldn't plant a mango here in Florida for that reason. Our summers tend to not have enough drought stress in them because we get a lot of rain during that time of year. And with mangoes that fruit in the off season, it's usually drought stress that's triggering that off season bloom. And even Chakanon's not that consistent about it. It can kind of vary tree to tree, but I wouldn't base my planting decision on that factor.
Okay. Can you please recommend two alternatives to copper available to backyard growers to fight anthracnose and BBS in high humidity areas?
Uh, well, I was gonna before that question finished. There's some nice biological products, but in high humid areas they don't function as well. You know, there's things like actinovate and double nickel 55, and um, those are biological products, but I've found that when you get more humid areas, it's more challenging. Um, the product that's available at Home Depot or Lowe's or something that might have some more effectiveness in those conditions is Daconal. But beyond that, I don't want to go too much further in terms of talking about product, but there's certainly information online. If you look for, and specifically if you're in an interior high humid area, you're looking for fungicides that offer efficacy against anthracnose specifically. So if you can find products that are like that, those are things that you can rotate as long as they're not a copper product, and they'll offer you some effectiveness, and they'll make the copper more effective, we'll put it that way. So, and hopefully you're using a good copper too.
All right, the next question, a non-mango question, and I'll definitely answer this after you do, but do you think white sapote could have any value as a commercial crop in Florida?
No, I don't. Its shelf life is too short. There's not enough market acceptance or demand. I think it's got value on a very localized level. Um, if you're going to a farm, like let's suppose you're a little small farm and you're selling your produce at farmers markets or even from your own farm stand or something like that, then there's some opportunity to sell it there, but even then it's limited. You're not going to get like lines of cars out your gate trying to buy white sapote. Um, as much as I love white sapote and I do like it, I used to grow like three different kinds of it actually, at my old farm in Loxahatchee. But that's really the opportunity. There's not a lot of resell opportunity, limited amount of shipping opportunity with people that are tropical fruit enthusiasts that discover you or whatever. But like, it's not, I don't see much of a commercial future for it in terms of like planting rows and rows of it. It's something where like if you've got a small farm, maybe plant a couple of them for those that really appreciate the fruit or for just for yourself. But it's definitely a gamble to be planting much more of it than that. If you're able to make a business doing it, then my hat's off to you. But I would probably focus on other crops in terms of like larger scale.
What's your three varieties did you have of white sapote at your other farm?
I had a Subel, I had a Youngins, and I had a Redland.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
caterpillars really liked them.
Really? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I know they like the leaves, but
yeah.
thankfully they haven't eaten my fruit, but
They didn't
uh,
eat my fruit. They ate my leaves on my
yeah,
tree.
they
That
like the
was
leaves.
frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And everybody, if you don't know, the new varieties, off-season white sapoteas are available now. So we're really excited about that we found. Okay. Uh, somebody's asking of the zinc uh, pregnancy, how does Kathy rank in your opinion?
Kathy sometimes has tasted really excellent, and sometimes it tastes more like an average into Chinese type flavor. I do have a Kathy tree. It's been fruiting for some years. The fruit that I've tried from Gary's trees were better than the fruit from our own tree. Um, you know, I haven't rushed out to plant a second one, I'll put it that way, but there's certainly specimens that I've had that have tasted really good. If I'm planting an Indo-Chinese hybrid flavored mango, I'm definitely favoring stuff like Love or Sweet Tart or P22 or Buttercream or even Venus if it weren't for the bacterial spot. I like Venus better than I like Kathy, or at least in most cases. Um, I've had some really good Kathy's, don't get me wrong. It's a good mango regardless, but my results from it haven't caused me to leap to recommend it to people. I'm still on the fence on it, I guess.
Okay. Which are Alex's favorite top three giant or big mango trees?
Favorite giant mango trees?
Yeah.
Um, sure. CAC, Sunrise, and ST Maui.
Yep.
Those three are aggressive trees. They're very large, and I love the mangoes they produce. Um, you know, I can certainly tolerate that aggressive growth for that level of quality. Plus, they're good producers too. Um, Maybe throw in Bombay, but Bombay doesn't fruit as well as those ones do. Um, I think that's a good list of
Y-
some. Oh,
Yeah.
Phoenix, man, I love Phoenix. That's a super aggressive tree for sure, and I love the fruit that that makes.
You
That's
named
another
all
one
my
where it's
favorites.
kind of
Yeah,
locational
they're
dependent.
amazing.
Yeah,
Okay. When do you recommend stopping mulch on mangoes? What will be the consequence of maintaining mulch over mango trees' life?
I usually cut out the mulch after the second year when most of them, because we plant them when they're like 1 gallon or 3 gallon size, when they're approaching fruiting size or are fruiting size. So, as far as consequences of continuing to mulch them, in the long run, you're going to get soil that has higher water retention capacity. And when you're talking about fruit quality, you want the soil to really dry out so that the flavor of the fruit is really high. Also, usually trees that are mulched more will, in the long run, grow more aggressively, from what I've personally observed. Okay. Um, and with mango, at least here in Florida, that's not desirable. You want to actually limit their growth. So initially, I like to give them some mulch to encourage some soil moisture, keeps the weeds down too, you know, because I'm trying to get that canopy established initially, but I'm just trying to get it big enough so it can start fruiting. So get it to that fruiting size as soon as I can. So that's part of our methodology. And that's why we like to stop applying mulch at that point, when they're about fruiting size, which is like a 4 to 5 foot tall tree and same kind of width. By that point, I'm usually not mulching them anymore.
Okay, what is the sweetest mango you've ever tasted?
I've had lemon zest and sweet tarts that hit 30 on the refractometer. So both of those, like to the point, they were so sweet that it almost like burns the back of your mouth because of the sugar content. So those are neck and neck. Like sweet tart and lemon zest, I've had individual specimens of those, and I guess I've had some that were maybe the either we didn't measure the bricks or the bricks measured slightly lower than that, but were unbelievably sweet. I've had pineapple pleasures that were outrageously sweet. Um, and even super Julies that were just incredibly sweet. So those are a few varieties that rank up there in terms of individual experiences I've had.
Okay, do you have a good stock of mango trees for sale at the moment?
Yes, we do. If you're looking for anything specific, just let us know. Shoot us an email. We've got quite a bit of stuff in both 1 and 3 gallon. Not a ton of 7 gallon trees. We have a few. Remember, we don't ship 7 gallons either. We ship ones and threes, but we have a pretty good selection right now. Um, so yeah, just you got something you're interested in, just give us a shout, shoot us an email, and tell us what you're looking for, and we'll let you know if we've got it. We make a lot of stuff. We make a lot of unusual stuff, and we're proud of that. And we graft it ourselves, so we have high confidence that it is what it's supposed to be. So I don't emphasize that enough, I suppose, but um, yeah, we like to make sure everything's labeled properly.
Okay, Ronnie's asking the most epic question about on a Mango Q&A that anyone's ever asked. The question is, Alex, who's your favorite rap artist?
My favorite rap artist. Okay, well, truth be told, I don't listen to a lot of rap. Um, and I can appreciate the talents and abilities of Eminem and Tupac Shakur, I suppose. Um, but I can't claim to I can't like cite a bunch of stuff that they've done or but I appreciate their talent and I suppose their artistical genius. So
Okay. All right, Will's asking, will Mahmoud Vikrabad and or Akria Nekriam be available for science this year?
Mahmoud Vikarabad and what? Oh, Ark and Nilkaran maybe?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. The answer to that is no. They will not be available for Budwood because we need them for our nursery, and we only have one specimen of both of those varieties in the ground. And so like that because they're dwarf trees, I just never get a lot of budwood. I absolutely need to add either planting a second one of each of those or top working another stump. Um, I just haven't gotten around to doing that. But until that happens, the demand for those trees is too high for us to justify selling their budwood. We need it. We need the budwood for our nursery to produce grafted trees for people's graft orders.
Okay. Is there any particular Adamoya cultivar that lends itself to container culture better than others?
Ah, mm, I don't know. I didn't try to grow. I grew atemoys in the ground, but I never tried to grow them in containers, and I know why, somebody would want to do that. I can tell you that uh, with atemoyas, the ones that self-pollinate are probably going to be less of a headache for you if you're growing like a bunch of other stuff. So like Geffners will self-pollinate, like the fruit will come out warped looking, but they at least self-pollinate, whereas like stuff like Lisa wouldn't really self-pollinate well, I guess maybe a little bit, but I got to defer to the other Annona experts on the topic of growing them in containers because I never tried to do it. So I wish I could provide you with a more thorough answer, but I can't.
Okay. Do you think Pickering has more cold hardiness than other mangoes? And I think Walter Zill may have said this, the person said.
So Walter initially, when that seedling was growing over there at the Zill Homestead slash farm in Boynton Beach back in the early 80s, we had some bad freezes back then, and Walter thought that maybe it was a little bit more cold hardy than the typical mango, but then he later changed his mind, I guess, on that based on feedback from other people or personal observations or whatever. Um, and in my own observation, I haven't seen anything to suggest that that's the case. If we wanted to do this right, if we wanted to evaluate the cold hardiness of mango trees, what we would have to do is we would need to grow them in an area, for one thing, that experiences cold weather that's going to cause damage with enough regularity that would give us opportunities over the course of several years to see what kind of response there was. But we'd also have to conduct what's called like a randomized block experiment. So you'd have like um, cultivars, like the same cultivar growing in different parts of the orchard, and then another cultivar, and so on, so that you've got them experiencing the same conditions. And even within an orchard or grove, you can have cold spots where it's significantly different, so that's a tough thing to control for. But it would be the only way to really properly evaluate that kind of thing. There was some good reports from the freezes that occurred in 1958 and 1959 in Florida with regards to, what kind of cold damage was experienced by mango cultivars over a vast area of land. You might be able to pull some of those up from the Florida State Horticultural Society, or I think they might have been published by the Florida Mango Forum as well. I don't remember, but like they did talk about how there was a pattern with certain varieties showing better cold tolerance than others. Um, but again, I would never base planting decisions on that. So you get to me, a mango would have like serious cold hardiness if it could reliably get into the 20s Fahrenheit without cold damage, with regularity at like mature size. And I just haven't really witnessed that trait with any specific cultivar. So.
All right. What would Alex say is the best mango and avocado from Dominican Republic?
Well, the only mangoes from the Dominican Republic that I know of are Banilejo and what's the other one called? Mingolo, which is lousy mango. So without having tried enough mangoes from the DR, I can't say. Avocado, I haven't tried too many Dominican avocados. I've tried the Carla, which was very good, and seems remarkably similar to the Campon.
Mhm.
Uh, check out the pictures of the two and see if they don't look really similar. Other than that, I can't remember if I've tried some of the other Dominican avocados. My understanding is some of them are quite good, but not an expert on their avocados. We have one that's called Semel 34, I think might be from the DR. Either that or it's from Puerto Rico. I can't remember. And it still hasn't fruited yet. Um, and I don't really grow any other avocados from there. So.
Okay. Uh, do you know anyone growing mangoes in Jacksonville? Is it possible?
Yeah, Jack Sturrock has trees or grafted mango trees in his yard and his property up there. Jack owns the farm in West Palm Beach, and he's up in I guess technically Ponte Vedra Beach, but like he's gotten fruit from his trees there. He does take some measures to protect them, I believe, but and there's definitely other people doing it too. Now, my suggestion is if you're going to grow them up there, you should think about growing them in containers, possibly if you're not in a real protected location, or perhaps building like some kind of greenhouse type of thing that you can erect around them during the winter season because you're going to see freezing temperatures a lot more frequently than the rest of Florida will. But it can be done, and there's other people doing it. um, maybe favor smaller trees that are gonna be more precocious and bear at a younger age, and also will be easier to erect some kind of structure over them if you do get a freeze, and if you don't feel like growing them in containers or pots. But it can definitely be done, especially in this era where the freezes aren't as common as they were. I remember when I was a kid, Jacksonville was a cold place in the winter. Like it froze frequently and often there, and that's not as common anymore. It still freezes, but not as much. So
Somebody's asking a similar question about Georgia, what mangoes will grow there. So I would say you're going to say the
it's the
same
same
thing.
same
Yeah.
kind of situation, yeah, except even more so. Like you're gonna see more freezes in Georgia. So yeah, grow them in a pot or build a greenhouse, a heated greenhouse. You can't just like make a structure or whatever and not provide any heat. I need to add that part too. But yeah, pretty much same answer.
Okay. Somebody's asking, how far apart can I plant sapodillas to ensure good pollination?
Oh, how far apart? I guess this is like a yard situation where like, yeah, one end of the yard or whatever. In most home situations, you can plant them probably hundreds of feet almost, and they'll still pollinate. I like to keep them closer than that, though. So, um, you know, within 100 feet, you're probably okay in most instances in order to get some cross pollination. But if you can get them closer than that, all the better. So,
Okay. Uh, Somebody says I live in West Davie. I have 25 super alfonso trees in my grove. Well, no, they're just no question. They're just saying they're all set fruit pretty well. Okay. Let's
okay,
see.
well, that's information. That's good. Good to hear. So.
Yes, good information. Are there funguses that are harmful to avocado open bloom?
Avocados can get powdery mildew. I've seen it before. Usually not enough to really impact the fruit set from what I've seen though, so I've never attempted to spray them. They can get anthracnose. Again, I've never had a problem with it. Even in Loxahatchee, I farmed out there for a long time. It was terribly humid conditions. The mangoes would get all kinds of fungus. My avocados fruited no problem, and that was without spraying them, really. I don't know if I ever sprayed them. Um, Now, what they did get was scab on the fruit, certain varieties, and they could get anthracnose post-harvest. But the scab was the bigger fungal issue with avocado, but it was on the fruit, not the flowers. So, and a lot of growers will control scab with a lot of the same products that are used to control anthracnose. So,
Okay, Zil 4026 seems like the new popular kid in school. Can you share a little bit more about its disease resistance and productivity? Would this variety do well out west in South Florida?
yeah, I don't know. No, I don't have a lot to share because I only have two fruiting sized trees, and one was planted relatively recently. In fact, it hadn't been allowed to bear fruit yet. I might allow it to bear fruit this year. The other one, the main one, that's such a small sample size, and I can't tell you that it will or will not do well out in certain areas. Um, it's certainly been productive enough, although the fruit is very small. So it's made plenty of fruit in its prior crops, but the fruit are small, so the yield is never going to be strong, because of the fruit size. It's definitely a collector's mango from that standpoint. Um, Disease, it's not had any issue with bacterial spot, which is, the big issue in our location. We sprayed it, controlled the powdery mildew, although it hasn't had much powdery mildew. Anthracnose is the question. It's a hybrid of the Julie and probably most certainly the Gary. And so my concern would be if you take this 4026 and grow it in a humid area, perhaps it could have issues with anthracnose. But having not done that myself, I can't tell you. Uh, I can tell you this about it. It's a little prone to nutritional deficiency. And I've seen that not just with our in-ground 4026 trees, but also trees that we've had in containers and also trees that people have planted in their yards. It's more likely to display some chlorosis, probably to manganese or iron deficiency, um, compared to other mangoes. Is that a big obstruction to growing it? Probably not, but it's something that's worth mentioning. It certainly sets fruit a lot better than the Gary. Another thing I've noticed about it is it needs to be eaten when it's firm, kind of like a peach cobbler. So peach cobbler, you want to pick it green on the tree and actually cut it while it's still fairly firm. It's a little bit like that. It can go overripe kind of quickly. Now, you catch it at the correct stage, it's awesome. It's really, really, really good. It's got both that citrus and coconut thing going on that Gary has. So it's worthy of the hype in terms of flavor, and it's a very slow growing tree. Ours kind of is a dwarf, but I don't want to label it as such because there's not enough examples of it. So y'all are going to have to share your feedback on how it performs for you because I'm not about to go plant 10 of them. I don't have the space. So it's a curiosity and a collector's mango until proven otherwise.
And Zil has finally come up with a name for it. Do you know that?
Yeah, you had mentioned that to me. Um, I wasn't even sure if Gary kept that tree, but I guess he must have.
But they've
Uh,
come up for a name with it. Yeah.
what did you say it was like creamsicle?
Creamsicle.
Yeah, creamsicle. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that name sounds appropriate because like when it's got that citrus component, you taste it. But then on other days or moments, it's got more of the coconut thing going on. So, but I kind of like that name.
Yeah.
I'll still have it labeled as 4026 for now. But
For now, yeah. Okay. Miles has got some. Which mango trees impress you the most considering fungal resistance and eating quality?
fungal resistance and eating quality. Cac, orange sherbet, those are top tier mangoes, and they've got very good fungal resistance for us. Um, I really like Angie. Maybe I like it more than a lot of other people do, and it's got terrific fungal resistance. Oh, Sassy Love. How can I leave that off? And Sweet Tart. Both those are outstanding, outstanding mangoes, and their disease resistance is superb. They don't get, I mean, they fruit through the powdery mildew. They don't really have anthracnose issues too much. You can like go without spraying them, and they don't get bacterial black spot much either, if at all. And those are the three primary disease issues that we have to worry about with mangoes down here in South Florida. So yeah, those two are are definitely winners in terms of eating quality and disease resistant trait. So
Okay. What time of season does Mahmoud Vikarab fruit start to mature?
it's as far as we can tell, it's a mid-season mango here in South Florida. So it's typically going to be fruiting in the later part of June and July. Um, Maybe more so in July. Um, has a reasonably long season, so it's not like one of these things where its season is measured in like 2 weeks or something like that, the way certain mangoes will act. Um, but I would say for most people, it's probably more of a July mango.
Okay. What temperature do mango flowers die?
What temperature do mango flowers die? Well, I can tell you probably close to freezing for death. For staminate flowers, which is a different matter, right? Where are they getting damaged? It varies by the cultivar. Some of them start getting damaged at just south of 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Others, it might need to get, much closer to freezing for that to happen. But like, definitely you can see, loss of pollen viability once the temperature is in the 30s for too long. But it's cultivar dependent, and, they won't all respond the same way to cold weather. Um, So yeah, I mean like it's more of an issue for varieties that already aren't making a lot of hermaphroditic flowers to begin with, right? So those few that they are making, if they're getting disaffected by the cold, you might not end up with fruit consequently. The ones that make plenty of females or hermaphrodites, if some of them get impacted in terms of the pollen being disaffected by the temperatures in the uh, upper mid 30s, it's less of a problem. So it's not desirable for trees to have open bloom during protracted time in the 30s Fahrenheit. We're talking about more than just, oh, the low hit 38 for a few minutes or something like that. We're talking about hours and hours spent in the 30s. So,
Okay. Somebody says, I'm Lehigh Acres and bought a sugarloaf. What can I do to prevent anthracnose and powdery mildew, and how often?
okay, powdery mildew, you want to start spraying for that when the panicles have emerged, and you're going to want to you can use, there's a few different options. I mean, there's sulfur, there's horticultural oil, there's potassium bicarbonate, millstop. as we called it. You really just need to pick one of those. And then, for the anthracnose, a good copper and a non-copper fungicide that is indicated against anthracnose. Um, you want to rotate that stuff. The powdery mildew, you want to make an anti-powdery mildew application every 7 to 10 days or so. And you can a lot of times mix your anti-anthracnose product when you're doing that, but um, I would suggest not applying copper like every week. That's a little bit too frequent. So maybe use the non-copper and the copper and like kind of alternate them week by week. Until about so that once the fruit have set, you don't really need to worry about powdery mildew anymore. But anthracnose is a different animal and it can continue to threaten your crop up until the fruit are about golf ball size or so. Um, and then you mentioned you're growing sugarloaf. You're going to need some patience with that one because it makes a lot of times exclusively male flowers when especially when it's young. Um, you know, um, our first wave of sugarloaf blooms that occurred during the cold weather that we had in January came out overwhelmingly male. I saw very few female or hermaphroditic flowers back then. Now, some of them are flowering again, and my expectation is that these blooms should produce more hermaphrodites this time. But yeah, that's my comments on that.
Okay. Mike says, I have a 7 gallon tree with flowers in Central Florida. Can I plant now? What will happen with shock to tree or fruit?
You have a 7 gallon, and you're wondering whether you can plant now.
Seven
Yeah.
gallon with flower in Central Florida.
Oh,
And plant
it's
now.
well, I mean, most 7 gallon trees aren't ready to be holding on to fruit anyway, so I wouldn't care one way or another. I would just probably plant it in the ground at this point. Um, with the expectation that there's a possibility you might have to provide it with some cold protection if it does get cold enough later this month. It's rare to get freezes in March. I mean, it's possible, but really you're more worried about the next like 2 weeks. Um, but otherwise, like it's been pretty warm. So if you're concerned about, don't you wouldn't want to protect it from a frost or whatever, you can just hold off until March and plant in March, I guess. But as far as the letting it fruit, I don't really like to let 7 gallon trees hold on to fruit anyway. So if it does shock the flowers, probably won't, honestly, if you plant it right. And if it does shock the flowers, you might see some shock effect on your foliage too. So that would be the least of your concerns. Um, but if you want to leave the flowers on, you can just plant it now. Flowers will probably be okay. I would probably strip the fruit myself. So.
Okay. I'm having extended flowering going on now. How soon can I spray copper without hurting the bloom and fertilization?
Um, there are different opinions on whether you can spray copper or should spray copper on open bloom, and it may vary by the product. And there's going to be people that disagree with me, but I'll just say this in my own experience, I've never harmed. No, I can't say I've never harmed. I did one time harm flowers with copper, and it was because I applied way too much. It was an accident. But otherwise, like, um, I spray open bloom with copper every year, and I've never had I don't have a problem with it. So doesn't impact the health of the bloom. Anthracnose certainly does, though. Anthracnose will impact the health of your bloom. So
Okay. What is the best soil mix for mangoes?
something that drains well, something that's sandy. Um, like at least a third sand or more. Um, what else you put in it? Our soil's got some Florida, not our in-ground soil. I'm talking about our potted soil has some Florida peat and some pine bark fines. For a little moisture retention versus pure sand, but lots of sand. We'll put it that way. Lots of
Okay.
coarse sand, built like builder's sand, not like kids' play box sand or something like that. So.
Okay. Are there any Southeast Asian mangoes that come from countries other than Thailand? I would like to know more about Southeast Asian mangoes.
Absolutely. Now Thailand has tons of mango varieties, don't get me wrong, but like I actually prefer the mangoes that come from um, former French Indochina, which is now three different countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Those mangoes from that area have a more acidic note to, not acidic note, like they have more a subacidity and a more complex flavor to me than the Thai mangoes do. And certainly they grow mangoes in the Philippines. Here we've got the Philippine mango, also called Manila in other places. It's been around in the United States for like 130 years or something, and they grow other kinds of mangoes in the Philippines. They also grow mangoes in Malaysia and Indonesia. We grow two kinds, or actually more than two kinds, from Indonesia. Like we grow golek and we grow harumainus, is kind of their national mango. Um, from Vietnam, we grow kak and cat hua loc, um, and we grow the Saigon, which technically was French Indochina. When it was introduced from the United States. That's a very high quality mango, though, even to this day. And many of the derivatives from it have been very high quality too. So, yeah, I mean, like, there is a world of mangoes in Southeast Asia beyond Thailand. And actually, I think I prefer, you know, um, not all Thai mangoes taste identical, but like I kind of do group them in their own flavor category, which is very sweet, notes of honey and floral notes, but not much subacidity and complexity, zero spice. And to me, to some people, that's great. To me, it's kind of boring. So like I much prefer a kak mango from Vietnam to Nam Doc My mango, from Thailand, but others will disagree, and that's fine.
Okay, next question is, how well does a Bon Passan Indian mango variety do in the acreage in West Palm Beach?
It's not a great choice for the acreage. Now, I grew it in Loxahatchee Groves, and I did get it to fruit, but it split real bad. I mean, it splits bad enough in West Palm Beach proper, in the city, but it splits real bad out there in that high humidity, and it can fruit and everything, but it just I would grow something else, um, other than that one. As good as that mango is, a Passan is a wonderful mango. Um, but just the cracking issue is a little too much. It's very much a collector's mango for sure. It's not something that I would recommend to, somebody that only wants to plant a few trees in their yard. So if you're going to plant it, be prepared to have some ugly looking fruit. You know, it can also, that talking about mangoes that come out with like too many males sometimes, that one can do that. So by the way, so you might need two blooms from it to get fruit some years. So
Right. Growth habit, vigor, and fruit size and precociousness of the Jaya mango variety.
so far we only have one tree, right? And I didn't get a ton of information from the folks that gave me the budwood, other than that it was supposedly a seedling of Bang and a Polly and it would fruit in the off season. That's what made us interested in it, really. It's got a spreading habit, open canopy, moderately vigorous at most, maybe on the lower vigor side. Not, I don't think it's a dwarf tree, but it's either low to moderate vigor. It's not hyper vigorous. Um, Flowers very easily. It's flowered each of the last 3 or 4 years, I guess. Made its first crop last year because it was finally large enough to hold on to the fruit. And I would say it's hard to grade mangoes on their first year of production. It's an Indian flavor. I would say like more of an Indian West Indian type flavor. First couple fruits occurred during a lot of rain, so they were kind of washed out, and then the later fruits tasted a little more similar to like a milder sunrise. I have optimism that it will taste better in the coming years, including this year. It is cropping now. Had one customer tell me that it was producing bloom back in November. This was somebody I think located in Lake Worth. That would qualify at the time probably as off-season bloom, but ours has not made off-season bloom yet. It's only made bloom during the regular winter period, but it definitely flowers easily. It makes plenty of female flowers compared to the Banganapoly, which can sometimes make a lot of males here. What else can I say about it? That's about it. So not a lot of information there. It only has fruited one time for us. It's only one tree. So
Okay, the next question is from Jeremy, and Jeremy's asking for Alex and also myself a question. So I'm restraining myself from answering because Alex is here, but I'll answer this one. But the question is, Alex, what were your top three mangoes of the 2024 season?
okay, top three mangas of 2024. Um, top three mangas of 2024. Um, Got to think about that a little bit. Sweet Tart was one, and it is almost every year for me. Besides that, what else really stood out to me? Um, Gaylor. I actually had a nice crop of Gaylor last year, and that's an awesome mango, and it just kind of stood out. I don't know if it was top three, but maybe it was. I just felt like mentioning it. What else really stood out? Um, I'm wasting time here. I know. I'm sorry. I want to get the answer right. Creme brulee, creme brulee, and 318. Let's throw that in there. I'll substitute the 318 over the Gaylor, even though Gaylor was really good too. But the 318 had such a unique flavor. So I'll go with that. Sweet Tart 318 and creme brulee.
All right, for me, very simple. It was Sunrise, CAC, and White Paris,
Yeah,
100%.
great choices. Those are
Yeah,
great. Yeah, White Perry, that was so good this last year. Yeah.
yeah. Next question is, help me understand, Alex, how cold weather causes bloom here in Florida. In the Virgin Islands, it typically never gets cold, but all our mangoes down their blooms without cold weather.
Yeah, because they're flowering off of drought stress. So in the Virgin Islands, your mangoes are flowering off of drought stress. The problem is that not all mangoes can do that. So we can take mangoes from northern India, plant them in the Virgin Islands, and they will never fruit because you don't get the cold weather that they need to make them bloom. Now, mangoes selected under subtropical conditions, like ours here in Florida, may or may not require cold weather to make them flower. But mangoes that respond to drought stress absolutely can and will flower off of cold stress as well. So, anyway, that's the reason why. The other being that here in Florida, our drought stress, our periods of dry weather, are often not as extensive as those found in the tropics, where drought stress can last, you can go months without a drop of rain. And even here in our dry season, and we do have a defined dry season here, but like January, for example, is historically a drier month, but we ended up with a period of time during the week of the 20th or so here where we got some rain. So anyway, so that's why mangoes in Florida are more dependent on cold weather stress to make them bloom compared to mangoes in the Virgin Islands or other parts of the tropical world where they don't happen to experience cold weather stress. However, the best yield achieved on mangoes on a per hectare basis is generally achieved in the subtropical latitudes. So take that into consideration. The yields, and this happens in India too. Like the yields up in the northern Indian states tend to be higher than the yields in the southern Indian states on a per hectare basis. And within Florida, we've historically in commercial properties, you can get yields like north of 20 tons a hectare. And that's kind of rare actually in the more proper tropics. And then in places like Thailand, we don't think of Thailand as a country with cool weather, but in the areas that they grow mangoes commercially, in the more central northern part of Thailand, they get temperatures in the 50s. How about that? And this is true in other places like Burma, for example, next door to Thailand. So, I mentioned one of the best places to grow mangoes was Mexico. And In Mexico, especially northern Mexico, they get plenty of cool weather. So cool and dry is the best for getting them to flower.
Okay, Caesar has a question. Have you used Jadem sulfur before? If you have, how did it perform?
I don't think I've used that brand. I've used a few different brands, but if it's wettable sulfur, it's wettable sulfur. There's not a ton of difference between from product to product. Um, they kind of achieve the same thing. So just make sure you keep it mixed because it will usually sink to the bottom of the tank if you don't have an agitator, if you're not shaking the tank. So
Okay, we have a super chat question, so it's going to precede all questions. And if you want to do that, everybody, super chat is open because we're running out of time here. So get those questions in, but super chat's open. So Matt R 159 says, "How would you guys rate Harvest Moon?"
Harvest Moon is a very good quality mango. If we're rating it on like a 1 through 5 scale, with 5 being the highest, it's like a 4 to 4.5 on its better days. Um, so it's a very good mango. It's not as elite as, a sweet tart or an orange sherbet or lemon zest perhaps, but it's quite good, okay? The downside is that the fruit is massive. It doesn't make a lot of individual fruit, but the fruit is so big that you're getting like an okay amount of poundage from the tree. Sometimes it's a very vigorous mango tree. So, but I mean, eating quality, it's a high quality classic subacid type flavored mango. Um, Very good. You're probably not gonna turn your nose to it.
Okay, there you go, and thank you for the super chat. Okay. Next question is, should I treat my tree even when they're not flowering for powdery mildew and anthracnose, or is it not worth it?
If the tree's not flowering, no, you shouldn't be treating it for those things unless it's having problems on the foliage with those fungi, which some mango trees will have that happen, and then you do have to treat it even though it's not flowering. But otherwise, no. That's usually just a waste of product and waste of your time and energy too.
Okay. Uh, Someone's asking about how do you feel about or have any opinions about Sugar Bell citrus tree?
I have no opinions about it. I've never tried it. I've heard a very minimal amount of feedback from people that have tried the fruit, not enough to air it out publicly, if you will. So if there's one comment I'll make, it's that I'm pretty skeptical that it's going to save Florida citrus. I think we're kind of past that point. But for those that are really keen on growing a citrus tree, you're probably better off trying to grow that than some of the older stuff, I suppose. But um, so maybe one day I'll try a fruit and see if it holds up to the old school citrus that we ate when we were kids.
Okay, there are several comments of people saying they missed you on the tropical fruit forum, and
Ah, I I'll tell you what, guys, I'll make a foray into the forum soon. I've been encouraged by a few other members. I haven't posted on it in over a year, and I used to be a pretty active poster, and so I'm sorry that I haven't been uh, as part of that a community as I used to be, but my work schedule has kind of dictated changes to my personal life in some respects, and so certain things I don't spend as much time on Facebook and social media either as I used to. So, but I'll come back and say hi to everybody, and I'm glad it's still around, and I still talk to one of the owners regularly. He's one of my friends. So, yeah,
somebody's saying any for pineapple pleasure, is there any disease that I should look out for?
everything. Well, not everything, because it's actually not bad with bacterial spot, but it's real prone to powdery mildew and anthracnose both, I believe. Um, It's we get pretty good results from Pineapple Pleasure, but it's a lot of it's locational dependent, I have to admit. So, you know, a lot of people have had really poor results with it in humid areas or even areas that not so humid. Right, Paul? I mean, like what is it, you or Rom that has Pineapple Pleasure?
We
Uh,
both do, and his was hit really hard this year. Mine not
yeah,
too bad.
okay, yeah. So definitely a collector's mango. Hopefully you have at least 5 trees in the ground before you think about planting something like that. But also one of the best mangoes you'll ever eat when it's on. So yeah.
Okay. Would it be a good time to graft mango trees in South Florida?
You can graft them any time of the year. We're still holding off. It's been warm enough, that rate of take shouldn't be an issue. My concern with grafting mangoes this time of year is the possibility that they'll still flower, and you want growth coming out of that material. You don't want inflorescence, right? So I prefer to just hold off until like middle of March or late March or something like that. And then after that point, you're usually pretty good. Like um, rate of take should be good. The chances of flowering are pretty minimal. So best times to graft them is usually, let's say between March and October. Um, the other months is, that you can get them to take, but when they put, I just hate it when I graft a mango and it pushes out an inflorescence instead of vegetative growth. So,
Okay. Can I have Alice comment on Valencia mango?
uh, there's still a seat at the table for Valencia Pride, but it's a shrinking seat. It's old technology. It's an extremely vigorous tree. It's one of the most vigorous mangoes you can grow, in fact. It's a classic mango flavor. Still appeals to some people. It's got pretty good anthracnose resistance. You can grow that in humid areas and it will still fruit even without spraying. And if you spray it, it'll fruit no problem. Um, I just think in this day and age, you have so many more options. You have options that are less vigorous, and then even if you wanted a vigorous tree, there's better tasting varieties, right? Um, and I think that there's so much more stuff now that's better, superior to Valencia Pride that in most cases it's hard for me to justify growing it, unless you're in a situation where like you really need something that will fruit under humid circumstances and maybe you don't have the plentiful options. But even then, like some of the stuff we discussed earlier, because we were asked this question, like what would fruit well in humid conditions that tasted really good? All that stuff's better than Valencia Pride by a country mile to me. Um, it's also one of those mangoes whose flavor varies a lot season to season. Valencia Pride sees quite a bit of variability um, in its vintage, so to speak, when it comes to its flavor. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it. So still a place at the table. It's resistant to bacterial spot enough, and it's resistant to fungus in general enough to stick around. But long list of stuff I'd plant before it.
Hey, is it okay to put black cow manure in the planting hole combined with native soil? I'm planting a 7-gallon Maha Chinook and I want to amend the soil. Any suggestions?
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't put manure in the planting hole. Just stick it straight in the native soil. Unless you'd like to increase the odds of your tree being unthrifty and unhealthy. Okay? Do not do that. Um, yeah. Don't put anything. Don't put fertilizer. Don't put compost. Just stick it in the native soil and backfill it with the native soil. Please.
Okay,
Rest
I don't think Alex
assured.
wants you to put anything in there. Okay.
Huh?
I said, I don't think Alex wants you to put anything in there.
No, don't.
Okay. Do you think it's a good idea to spray my tree with fish emulsion to attract more flies? And if I should spray the panicles, leaves, trunk, or all of the above?
No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, like, I've never had an issue with pollination on mango trees, just leaving them alone. Fish emulsion's going to put nitrogen into the tree, even if it's not a ton of nitrogen, it's something. And I hate giving fruiting mango trees nitrogen of any amount. I don't want to give them an ounce. So I wouldn't do that. Um, there's probably products or things that you could apply, but I never found it necessary. They usually get enough pollination from the bugs that are going to visit them, from the aroma that they give off. Mangoes have a very earthy aroma that they give off when they open up, and the bugs tend to find them. So, except when the weather sucks. If it's raining a lot, then you're out of luck. That happened to us a few weeks ago for a brief period. So, but generally, it's not an issue.
All right, for those of you that are joining us now, we've been on for about over an hour, and I want to just remind you if you missed the beginning, please go back and look at all the questions we answered. But we had a special announcement, so we're going to take a moment to put that announcement out there for those of you that joined us late. Alex, go ahead and give them the good news.
Okay, well, for those of you that missed the announcement at the beginning of the video, we are going to be holding the Florida Mango Festival again this year. Um, the one that we held last year was a very successful event, and we're going to hold it on the 29th of June, which is a Sunday, in West Palm Beach, the city of West Palm Beach, at the Palm Beach County Convention Center, which is in downtown West Palm Beach. Very conveniently located, not too far from the highway, not too far from the airport, connected to a hotel and also many nearby lodging options and so forth, and also even the train stations nearby in case you want to take the train to the event. It's going to be completely and air conditioned and shielded from the elements, if you will, so you won't be out baking in the heat index, high heat index, and humidity and everything, and you won't have to worry about a thunderstorm on top of you either. And we're going to have tons of people from all around our great state here participating, other growers, little nurseries, and farms all together in one place. You'll have growers selling their fruit and their trees, and we're going to have educational lectures and talks and panels and all kinds of great stuff. And it's just such an awesome opportunity to have everybody in the mango community together and sharing knowledge and experience and everything. So that's the whole point is of that event is to celebrate the mango, and it's going to be June 29th. So circle your calendar, June 29th at the Palm Beach County Convention Center. We'll have more information forthcoming, going forward. So
Yeah, some cool things about it is there's that new train that goes to Orlando, to West Palm to Orlando now. What's that called?
yeah, the Bright Line.
Bright
And
Line, and you can go
and by the
door to
way,
door without
so there's
getting out of
also,
your.
for those of you who might be interested in taking a train, there's the Bright Line, but there's also an Amtrak train that runs from Orlando to West Palm as well.
Oh,
So, if you're over there in Central Florida and you're thinking about maybe going to the event, the train station's walking distance from the convention center. So, and
yep.
if you're in Southeast Florida, you've got the Tri-Rail and you've got the Bright Line as well. So if you don't want to, deal with traffic driving or whatever, the train is a perfectly good option too. So think about that if you're planning to visit the festival.
Yeah,
And
Brightline, Tri-Rail, and also the Amtrak, they're all walking distance from the convention center. So that's going to be really cool. And another cool thing is it's connect. There's a bunch of hotels downtown if you're coming in from out of town, and the Hilton Hotel's connected right to the center where we're having the event. And I
yes,
believe there's a shuttle that goes from the Hilton to the airport. So you can
yeah,
literally fly in, not have to rent the car, take a shuttle right to the airport hotel, stay there, and just go downstairs in the lobby, and you're at the
yeah,
festival. It's amazing.
yeah. It's we're really excited about this location and all the opportunities it affords us. And I hope that we'll be able to put on a great event. And I hope that we'll see a lot of you there. Um, and just stay tuned for the other details forthcoming. So
Yes. All right. And for those of you that never tried it before, for my favorite viewers, if you stop on my table at the event, I'm going to try to bring some white zapote for you. So, all right. We have a super chat. So that's going to skip all questions. Garden of Edibles said Amorpali and Timor production growth and disease question mark.
Well, they're polar opposites in their growth habit. The or what we call Timor, the USDA Timor. It's not. It's what's grafted within the Florida nursery trade. Okay, that's a very vigorous, vertically oriented tree that wants to get big. Um, and it flowers every year to some extent, but some years it's flowered better than others. I'll put it that way. Amrapali flowers pretty well every year. We only have part of a tree, but it's a slower growing tree compared to that Timor. And the Amrapali's flavor is a little tricky to describe. The Tamor that we have is like an Indian West Indian type flavor with a little bit of a twist to it, I suppose. The Amrapali has notes of citrus, has notes of Indian West Indian type flavor. It's got a lot going on. Depends on the stage that you eat it. Very complicated mango. They're both outstanding. They're both very high, like elite class mangoes, basically. Um, but it kind of depends on where you're going to grow them, I guess. Like if I was in California, I would grow the USDA Tamor, no question. But here in Florida, I'd probably favor the Amrapali because of the slower growth habit and the ease in which it flowers here compared to the Tamor, which is a little more sporadic. So,
All right. We have another super chat from Angel Alvarez. I need to pot up a few Pickering trees in pots. What soil mix is best for potting mango plants?
something with we did discuss this earlier because somebody asked about this very same question. Something with a lot of coarse sand. So anywhere from a third to 50% coarse sand. Uh, You can mix in other stuff like peat moss or whatever, but like a real simple way to do it is just get regular like potting mix and mix it with a lot of coarse sand. And that usually works out okay for mango. Um, but once you start getting into lower amounts of sand or no sand at all, and it's like straight potting mix, they really don't like that. A lot of the time, they're going to actually struggle in that kind of condition. So builder's sand is what it's also called, besides coarse sand.
Okay. Well, we don't have all the fruitful five because Bobby's not here, but Julian, Laura, and also Tom are online right now. So hello, guys, and we'll be doing a live Q&A with all of us eventually here. That'll be great. But Julian had a question. If mangoes were currency, what variety would be the most valuable?
If mangoes were currency, what variety would be the most valuable? Oh, that's a cool question, Julian. All
Rebecca
right.
answered. Rebecca said CAC, Carla, Ceci Love, and ST Maui.
Yeah, I think those would be pretty valuable. Man, ST Maui is really valuable because of just the uniqueness of the flavor and the interest in people wanting to try it. Um, yeah, I'd throw in a few others too. The some of which have been discussed, like the Mahmoud Vikarabad. That's a really good flavored mango, high quality. Uh, Sweet tart, lemon zest.
Sunrise.
I mean, Sunrise is very good. Don't get me wrong, but I would rate, I think, a few of those just a little higher.
You know what? You know what? You know
Jal.
what? One of the reasons why I love sunrise is because I freeze my mangoes. People say, "What do you do with your extra mangoes?" And
Yeah,
before I sell them, I'll freeze them because I want to have. And mangoes seem to lose a little flavor when you freeze them. But
I think they lose a lot. Yeah, I think they.
my sunrise that I froze
Yeah,
were when they thawed out, they were the closest to fresh. They
yeah.
were amazing.
I know what you mean. Yeah. No, Sunrise is a very good mango. Like to me, um, even though I might be rating some of the others like a five or whatever, it's like a 4 to 4.5. It's a very good mango. So, and it's a very good performing tree too. In fact, that's one of those varieties I forgot to mention when the person asked about varieties that'll do well in a high humid situation. Sunrise fruits really well in like Loxahatchee. So that's one to consider for that kind of situation if you can tolerate an aggressive tree because it is a vigorous tree. So
Yeah. Okay. And also to Julian's question, if you're Jamaican, I guess East Indian would be the most ex valuable currency.
yeah, yeah, it is in
So
Jamaica. So
yeah. So okay. So question is Narit where they grow alfufo mangoes?
is it where they grow what mangoes?
Alfufo. Altufo.
Ataulfo. Yeah, they do
Altio.
grow Ataulfos in Nayarit. Yeah. But I think they can grow pretty much a lot of other kinds of mangoes in Nayarit too, besides Ataulfo. I don't know, like I mean, maybe more so in private orchards or whatever, because anything that's grown on scale, they're gonna probably grow some of the more common commercial varieties. But if I was living in Nayarit, Ataulfo would be low on the list of stuff I'd be trying to grow. I'd be trying to grow like all kinds of stuff, like much more flavorful stuff. So,
Okay. Another question says, is there anything I can do to speed up the growth of young potted mango trees?
uh, full sun, lots of water, and some fertilizer, both granular fertilizer and liquid fertilizer, I suppose. That's it. um, that's those are the things that are available to you to get them to grow quicker, and that's in Florida, by the way. If you're in a colder climate, you don't want to water them a lot, or they can actually get root rot. So the opposite effect. But here, when it gets nice and hot, and then you know,
Does
watering.
nitrogen help the small trees grow faster? I
Yeah,
know it's
uh-huh. Yeah. But remember, it doesn't take too long before they get to fruiting size. So you got to be quick with the trigger to cut that stuff out. So, but if you're trying to get them to grow, nitrogen fertilizer will make mango trees grow.
okay.
So,
Another question from Greater Good. Top 10 list of sleeper mango varieties that deserve more promotion and included in backyard plantings.
um, let me think of some good ones that are sleepers. There's I mentioned it earlier when we were talking about mangoes from Southeast Asia, the Saigon. It's kind of a dwarfish tree. Very good disease resistance. Doesn't get talked about by anybody, including us. We don't talk about it. Um, let's see what other sleepers. Little Gem doesn't get talked about a lot, and I probably need to talk about it more because there's a lot to be said for something that fruits that well and has that level of disease resistance. Um, other sleepers.
Is there a reason on Little Gem why like every other one tastes good and every other one is just
Yeah,
average?
in my opinion, it's because the tree loads up so much, and this happens with Duncan trees too, and a few other varieties, that it saps a lot of the bricks that's available to the individual fruits. And so, in that sort of situation, the ones that are going to occur maybe in more sunlight or more optimal part of the canopy are going to taste better than some in a different part of the canopy that maybe experiences a little more shade or airflow restriction or whatever. So, so I think that's part of it. But I mean, I thought they were pretty good last year, and especially at that point in the season where there's not a lot around. Speaking of some other stuff that's not getting talked a lot about, Orange Essence doesn't seem to get talked about a lot, but it's a pretty good tree and it's a really good fruit, good citrus flavored mango. Um, I mean, I'm searching for stuff that has applicability in more than just the coastal zone because if I was also talking about stuff that happens to do pretty well on the coast but doesn't get talked about a ton, like there's things like dot that don't get grafted much anymore that certainly have a place in yards if your humidity's not too high. Um, Emerald, if you like that Indian West Indian flavor, Emerald doesn't get talked about
So
much.
good.
That's
So
that's
good.
a good backyard tree. Really good, reliable, not terribly aggressive like some of the other Indian flavored mangoes. Um, I don't know. I mean, like, there's things that we've tried to shine some light on that probably deserve more, like Herbie and Smith, and that could be backyard mangoes for people, but they're not really grafted in the nursery trade. What else? Just trying to think of really obscure stuff. I don't know. Sometimes in these situations, I draw a blank and then I think about stuff later on that I should have
Would
mentioned.
step mango be a sleeper for you?
Yeah, that's a good one. Step. So we don't talk about step too often. And that's a nice moderate to low vigor tree. Makes nice sized fruit. They can get big anthracnose spots on them, but who cares? The quality of the fruit's really good. You know, good moderate to good producing tree. Yeah, that's a nice example. Um, like a good tree if you like the Indian West Indian flavor. Um, and you like larger mangoes. So,
And another one that a lot of people love that you talk about summer, but not too much is Sun Peri. Everyone loves that one.
yeah, I don't talk about that one enough, and I don't have enough trees of it in the ground. I have two technically, but only one that's really a fruiting sized tree in a good spot. I've noticed they are a little prone to potassium deficiency, though. Sonperry trees specifically are a little prone to that here in South Florida. But yes, that is one that we don't talk about enough of, and it definitely deserves more planting in yards, right? And on farms too, I suppose. Son Perry, yeah, good suggestion, Paul.
Yes.
Son Perry is an excellent variety, and it fruits in Florida. You know, not all Indian mangoes do that great here. Um, Kesar does pretty well, and we
These
don't speak
are
about it.
excellent.
Kesar is amongst the keeping on this theme of mangoes from India. Kesar fruits pretty well for us, and we have a good number of them. We have like 7 or 8 of them, and they fruit pretty
Great
consistent.
flavor. Great flavor.
Yeah, nice, strong Indian Alfonso type flavor. So there's more than that, but that's what we came up with for this question.
Yes. And okay, well, it's that time, everybody, where we got about 20 minutes left. So I'm gonna start selecting the questions. And if you definitely have a question you want to get answered, do a super chat because we have a ton of questions. We will do this again with Alex. He'll go in and look at the comments. So other than the questions, post your questions below if they in the comments if they don't get answered. But we're gonna start being selective with the questions for for the time. All right. Somebody's asking your top four favorite mango trees for coastal Martin County 10A.
Coastal Martin County, top 4 favorite mango trees. Well, if I was in coastal Martin County, like, not too far from the Sand Ridge there, which we share down here in Palm Beach County, I might go and try to grow things like like the aforementioned dot, that or Edward, that's going to fruit real like maybe an Edward or a rosy gold because that would give me spring mangoes, right? When other people don't have spring fruit necessarily. Uh, and I'm just trying to. Oh, Beverly is a real nice late season mango that you can grow over there in coastal Martin County, and it'll last real late, and the quality be really good. Um, I'm just because you told me you're in the coastal zone. I'm just trying to think up of the stuff that I'm not allowed to plant out west because of anthracnose problems. So, uh, uh, mm, I mean, like I can give you like the basic recommendations that I give to other people, like in terms of, fitting them into the seasons. So if like you want something real early, there's Rosy Gold was a good option, or maybe Dwarf Hawaiian, because Dwarf Hawaiian will fruit there in that coastal Martin County zone, no problem. And then for like a regular early season mango, maybe an Angie or a Pickering. But you could also grow something like Dot or Dupuis Saigon. Those are two really good varieties that are too anthracnose prone for inland. And then middle season, you got like CAC, Orange Sherbet. Um, those are some really good middle season varieties that will do well almost anywhere. And then the later parts, you've got I already mentioned Beverly, but then there's like M4, Cotton Candy, Orange Essence. Those are great, and those do fine there too. So
All right. Is the orange sherbet, is it common to have a calcium deficiency? Because my trees and my neighbor's trees, Rom's trees, they both were like kind of jelly seed or they didn't ripen correctly. And it's interesting because we each have two trees, or he has two, I have one, and they were all similar. Is that common with orange sherbet?
Yeah, yeah, it can get that for sure, especially if you allow the fruit to tree ripen, which you really kind of shouldn't. I would suggest picking them mature green, ripen them off the tree. When they tree ripen, they can get jelly seed and they can get soft nose, which is where orange sherbet is. So mangoes can either ripen from the top up or the bottom up, and orange sherbet ripens from the bottom up. Okay, and so the bottom will be riper than the middle or the top a lot of the times if it's allowed to tree ripen. And but the jelly seed issue is a different matter. That's when you cut it open and it's all gelatinous around the area of the seed, and that's pretty much always a calcium deficiency problem. But you can mitigate that to a big extent by um, harvesting them mature green, and then they ripen over the course of 5 or 6 days or 7 days or whatever, and they taste just as good or better, and they don't have the breakdown. Beyond that, the fix is applying calcium. That might require you applying gypsum or some other form of calcium to the tree. So that might help in terms of preventing it on the fruit that is allowed to tree ripen. So
Okay. Okay. All right. So somebody's asking, do I have to spray my trees? Would it wait, do I have to spray my trees to help with production?
well, in most cases, you will get better production regardless of your locale if you're willing to spray your trees, both with disease preventative products and nutritional products designed to make the trees healthier. Do you have to do it to get fruit is a different question. And it really kind of can depend on your location. But if you're planting the right stuff that has enough natural disease resistance and enough natural productivity traits in terms of their consistency of blooming and their ability to set fruit, make plenty of female flowers, set fruit, retain fruit, then you don't necessarily have to spray to have productive trees. And I think that's something we need to emphasize because there's a growing trend of people that feel like you have to spray mango trees to get fruit from them, and that shouldn't be the case. If you have enough varieties that are naturally productive, even if you're in a humid area, there's enough varieties out there that can fruit without spraying, like Floragon or Duncan or Pickering or Angie or Neelam. And there's more than that, okay? This is just a couple that popped into my mind. So, but will your results be better if you spray? Yes. Most years your results will be better. How much better might depend on your location and the year. So you just don't have to necessarily view it as a necessity when it comes to growing mangoes if you're smart about it. So
Okay. Will this be the year that we can buy Akron, Nicaron, Mango Science from Tropical?
somebody asked that same question earlier. They asked about Arkanil Quran and Mahmoud Vikarabad. The answer is no. We will not have Arkanil Quran scions available this year. We need the budwood from the tree to graft the orders that we get for that tree in our nursery. So I can't be selling the budwood and then, denying our own nursery the budwood that we need to produce Arcanilcaron trees. I absolutely need to have a second one of those based on the demand for it. But I don't have a second one. I only have one. Look, when we have a stump to top work that can be top worked, there's a whole bunch of things that we have to take into consideration, and we don't have a lot of space left to plant on, and we're still adding varieties, if you can believe that or not. We have varieties that don't appear on our website yet, but will appear soon that we've added in recent years. So there's a lot that goes into that, and I do not anticipate having Arcanil Quran scions available this year at all in our Budwood program, unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay. Rom's asking, what do you think about Super Alfonso?
That's a really good mango that I unfortunately don't have a ton of experience with because our one producing tree, okay, was in a terrible location. It was a topwork stump sandwiched between two big old trees. and it was also sharing the stump with another mango. And so finally, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I top worked another stump into Super Alfonso. See, we're talking about top working choices here. This was one of them. And that top worked stump is going to fruit this year. But it's a very good quality fruit. It's a little finicky about when it's picked. So we're talking about letting mangoes tree ripen and the problems you've had with orange sherbet. You should not let Super Alfonso tree ripen. You should pick it mature green so that ripens over the course of a week or so, maybe slightly less than that. And it will taste really awesome. It's got a classic subacid flavor with a tiny bit of Indian resin. It does not taste like the Alfonso, okay? It's had a bunch of different names actually over the years. So originally ZIL 36-8 was the number. And it is a progeny of the ZIL 80, which is the mango you see in the background behind me. So it is a seedling of that mango. So it's related to the Carla and the Edgar and a few others that came from that program. And they can be super productive trees. The trees at Gary Zill's place made so much fruit, like limb breakage type levels of fruit. So it's got commercial potential, but it's one of those things where you're going to have to remember not to let it tree ripen. They can be picked too early too, just like any mango can. But um, other than that, I want to have more experience with the tree producing well so I can evaluate its resistance to bacterial black spot because the ZIL 80 parentage does allow for some concern over that disease. And I've had some get it before on the one producing tree that we have. But again, not enough productivity from that tree that's in the bad spot. So it's probably a mango I would talk about more if I had more production, more producing trees of it. Now we do with the top work that's going to be starting to bear this year. So you might hear more from me about that variety going forward as we gain some more experience with it.
Okay. Somebody has a question. It says, I have an M4 that set just a few fruit on each panicle. Those more likely to not drop because they don't have competition. Should I remove the panicles and hope for a better bloom?
No, don't do that. If you've got fruit set, just leave it on. They're more likely to retain those mangoes versus if there's tons of little fruit set and then they're going to abort a lot more of. But no, I wouldn't strip any panicle off that already has fruit on it. Now, the moment the panicle is barren and the fruit have dropped off, okay, go ahead, break off the panicle, but now you may still see a second bloom on some of the branches that did not set fruit, in the coming month or weeks or whatever. So hopefully that will happen and you'll end up with two M4 crops. And actually we have M4s that have fruit set on them and second bloom emerging right now. So there will definitely be M4s this year.
Great. So, right, Ray's asking, he says, help, I put a Valkyrie graft on a little gem in October. It pushed two really weak leaves, which died in early January. Now the leafless graft is loaded with blooms. I'm afraid that this graft will die.
It might. You certainly don't want it to hold on to fruit. So I would strip any fruit that it happens to set. Sometimes when you cut the panicles before the flowers have opened, they'll respond with some growth off of the panicle, like they'll bud out from the panicle, and sometimes you'll end up with some vegetation instead of inflorescence. Part of that's timing too, but regardless, if you want to just strip the fruit off, um, you know, and hope it flushes, some growth. But yeah, I mean, like, I would probably just regraft when the opportunity arises. So
When's a good time the best time to start grafting again? After the bloom or after when mangoes start are ready to pick or
no, I usually will start grafting again either end of March or beginning of April. By that point, the risk of flowers coming out of your graft is a lot lower, and they'll push a little quicker because the nighttime temperatures are pretty warm by that point most of the time, and the daytime highs have also gone up and everything. So, um, and then anytime between then and October. So
okay.
we graft them during that period of time with breaks for, fruit season and everything. But
Okay. Somebody's asking about two mangoes. We spoke about one of them. They said, what is your thoughts about 4017 and 4026? So we spoke about 4026.
yeah,
So
we
go
talked
back
about
and talk about
4026
that.
already. So rather than reiterate what we already said, the 4017 is a very interesting mango. So that's from Gary's program. And it is probably a hybrid of Julie and Gary, although I don't remember it having any speculated parents. Um, and anyway, the tree's a top work that we have, but it's grown dwarfishly. And the grafted ones that we've produced in our nursery have grown very slowly too. And it's another one of those mangoes that's very similar to the Gary, and it mimics that whole citrus, sometimes coconut deal. But I would say it leans more towards the citrus. It tastes kind of like an on-point peach cobbler, maybe. Really, really high quality fruit. Um, it's a little anthracnose prone for sure. So probably a collector's mango. It's fruited okay some years, but like it's not a heavy producer. Not a pretty fruit either. It actually a lot of times stays green and then turns yellow like right when it's ripe. But an exceptional quality fruit. Really good. And unfortunately, not a lot of people have tried it yet. We've sold it, I guess, at the farm to some extent, and we've probably shipped a few too. But um, so an interesting collector's mango. Probably going to need to spray it to get crops from it. If you're one of those people that can plant a lot of different varieties, then you might consider it. Got a small yard, plant something else because you know, too many hurdles involved in getting it to fruit well, I think.
Okay. Uh, Somebody said, I know you do not ship whole trees to Hawaii, but do you ship scions?
Yes, scions we can ship. Problem with trees to Hawaii is that Hawaii's government says that it's got to either be bare rooted or in soil free media. We do not ship our mango trees that way. Uh, Whether they will check for that is another matter I won't get into, but but scions are okay. They let us ship scions there, and we ship them during the scion season all the time. We have a lot of budwood customers in Hawaii. A lot of people in Hawaii have had success with our budwood, and they're trialing a lot of these other hybrids and varieties that we've got. And the cool thing to me is like when some of these Hawaiian growers buy budwood of from us of Hawaiian varieties that are just no longer very abundant in Hawaii or kind of hard to find in Hawaii. So it's like you're almost reintroducing Hawaiian mangoes to Hawaii. I just think that's kind of cool sometimes. So
Yeah. And the same person's asking if you'll be selling a Nona Budwood.
no, we don't grow Anonas, unfortunately, so we don't have any Anonas species of any kind on the farm. I used to grow custard apples and sugar apples and Atamoyas and unfortunately, I sold that property years ago, and I don't have any Anonas in my collection anymore. So you'll have to get that from Julian or or John Painter or somebody like that. So
I got my first San Pablo custard apple ever today on the tree. So that's exciting. I'm excited. Uh, so
good.
somebody's asking, they said, what was that?
I said that's good custard apple.
Yeah, oh, it's amazing. So somebody's asking, they said, Alex, I know you've been asked this many times, but do you have any idea when the 4026 is going to be available?
The 40,
Twenty-six,
the fruit or the tree?
the tree.
The tree?
I would assume the
Um,
tree, yeah.
oh, okay. Um, well, we grafted some last fall to catch up on orders. We stopped taking graft requests for it because we were getting overwhelmed. We were getting like an order a day or at least a couple a week for that mango, and it was getting beyond our capacity to produce it. And we want to make sure that we can keep up with our obligations to people that have placed orders with us. So it is our intention to graft as many of them as we can this year. But remember, we only have two trees. Only one of them is a fruiting size tree. I guess the other one is probably fruiting size now. But that one that's fruiting size will be allowed to carry fruit. So I'm not going to go strip the fruit off of it. And that will impact availability of budwood for our own nursery. Okay, um, so I don't know is the answer. I'm sorry. It's great that there's a lot of interest in this variety, to be clear. But remember, real limited sample size on it, so your mileage may vary quite a bit. Some of you folks that are going to try growing it in different places, I wish you the best of luck. But if you're wanting to get a tree from us, you're going to have to probably exhibit some patience. At some point, when I feel satisfied with how well we've kept up with the existing orders for it, we will put it back on the graft request function for it. We will put back on the page. So,
Okay. In Australia, they grow atemoids commercially. Why not Florida?
that's a good question. I think Australia's conditions are probably a little better suited for the Atamoya to flourish, compared to our climate here being, a little more wet and, probably the soil is not as optimal as in Australia for Atamoya. But I know they have a lot of success with it there. And there's certainly people that grow it on farms here in Florida. But I just think some of the other crops, especially um, given that a lot of the Atamoyas, do better with hand pollination, a lot of growers may not want to do that. They'd rather grow a crop that self-pollinates better and, um, you know, maybe is a little less of a finicky tree here and stuff. So that would be my explanation as to why they're not as common here. So
Okay. Uh, has Alex tasted the Bolt mango yet?
I don't believe so. But somebody gave me budwood last year, and I grafted some, and I got to see the status of those. Hopefully they took because it was kind of late when I did the grafting. But no, I have not. I've heard pretty much nothing but good things about it. So excited to start growing it at some point soon. And maybe someday somebody will bring me a fruit or something, but or I'll trade them a fruit of something else. But no, I have not had it yet.
Okay. Does Sugarloaf always have poor production? 5-year-old trees still low to poor production.
No, it doesn't always have poor production, or I wouldn't have kept them around, but it is one of those varieties that definitely makes a lot of male flowers. And, that can be frustrating because those male flowers aren't going to set fruit. But in our experience, they have flowered twice. So they'll have a second bloom, and that second bloom is more likely to carry fruit. And so, I've had years where they produced reasonably well and others where they were more mediocre in production. And we'll see how they do this year because the first wave was almost a total bust. There might be a few fruit out there, but we're going to really have to see what they do on that second bloom to see what kind of a crop we'll get. But it's absolutely another collector's mango that, you shouldn't run to plant if you only have a couple trees in your yard. It's not gonna, it's gonna take some time for it to reach the point where it's, producing on a regular basis acceptable crops. I absolutely understand your frustration though.
Is it worth keeping if somebody has it or in limited?
Depends on how much space they've got. If they've got, let's suppose, only room for like less than five trees or something like that, I wouldn't keep it in that circumstance because I wouldn't have planted it in the first place in that situation. For me, it's like, where do you define a collector? Is it beyond five trees? Is it beyond 10? But if you feel like you've got enough regular producing varieties in your yard, then yes, it's exceptional. It's one of the best mangoes you'll ever eat, in my opinion. So, uh,
How does sugar taste wise? How does Sugarloaf compare to the other one you say that's so great?
which one?
You were talking about it earlier. You said it was the one of the best mangoes that taste in your whole farm, but it doesn't produce the best. It slipped my mind. I'll come back to it. Okay. What about Tess Pollock? What do you recommend about Tess Pollock? Is that a good producer?
It's a decent enough producer by the coast, but I just know if you take that mango inland into humidity, it's going to get so much anthracnose that you won't see much fruit from it. Very nice tasting fruit, um, and very consistent about flowering. It'll flower two or three. I've even had it flower four times in in a bloom period. Um, so and it's got a nice compact growth habit, very similar growth habit to the carry, actually. Almost identical rates of growth and density of the canopy and the spreading growth habit and everything, but definitely doesn't taste like carry exactly. It's a different kind of flavor. It's like a little more towards the classical end of the spectrum, but it's still an Indian Alfonso type flavor, if you know what I mean. Again, I'm not great at describing the flavors. Gets a lot of post-harvest anthracnose. It's rare to get a clean one. The fruit usually have spots, or they will develop spots as they ripen. So more prone to post-harvest anthracnose than most varieties. So um, nice tree if you're near the coast. If you're more than 5 or 6 miles inland or something like that over here, I'd steer away from it. Um, but I'm glad we have the one that we do. It's a very consistent producer for us.
Okay, somebody's asking, does Alex grow jumbo quesar?
No, and I don't believe it exists in Florida, unfortunately. I've They used to have a tree labeled as such at Fairchild Farm, and it turned out to be a regular Quesar. We got trees that were grafted from that tree. Jumbo Quesar is a real variety. Okay, it exists in India, and I believe there's some people in the Dominican Republic growing it. But the one that Fairchild introduced, Fairchild Garden, okay, that is not a Jumbo Quesar. It's just a regular Quesar. So maybe one day I'll get Jumbo Quesar somehow, some way, but I do not have it now. So
Okay.
yeah,
How's the production on fruit cocktails? Somebody's asking.
it's light to moderate. It's not a heavy bear. It's on the lighter side. It fruits every year for us. It's one of those ones that makes a lot of males on the first wave, and then it has a second bloom, and the second bloom is the one that ends up carrying more of the fruit. It's a very good mango. Ours is a top work, okay? We don't have a planted one in the ground. We only have one top work tree of a fruit cocktail. It's kind of a mid to later mid season variety. Very nice Indian, West Indian kind of flavor, but I wouldn't have high expectations for the production. Certainly not a commercial mango. It might be acceptable for a lot of backyard growers, I guess, but I would never plant more than one of them for that reason because it's definitely on the low to medium side of in terms of yield. So
Okay. Uh, we only got, we're going to take three more questions, everyone, before we finish here. Uh, let's see. How is Alex's true hemp cigar tree develop going?
that tree was planted like a little over a year ago, I guess later part of 2023. It's perfectly healthy, I think. I guess I should take a look at it sometime soon, but I'm pretty sure it's doing pretty well. Probably at least another year or 2 years away from fruiting, depending on the rate of growth. But it's healthy. I think I might have, yeah, it's healthy. It's doing okay. So I don't know how long it'll take to fruit here, though. Might take a while.
Okay. Denny's asking, is guava mango worth growing if you have limited space? And how big does it grow?
I think it is, but it depends on if you really like it or not. It's productive enough. Um, it's a reasonably vigorous tree. We'll call it on the vigorous end of the spectrum, but you can prune them. And it produces well enough, got a good enough disease resistance, I think, to be somebody's backyard mango tree, even if they don't have space for a lot of trees. But it is one that I think you ought to try first before planting. Okay, but it's definitely productive enough for a backyard grower.
Okay. And let's see. Let's see. All right. Everybody, I'm going to take one more question here. I want to thank you all. Alex's website is tropicalacresfarms.com. For those of you that are going to have questions about the Mango Festival, more details will be coming soon, but the date is going to be June 29th, Sunday, and it's going to be at the Convention Center in West Palm Beach. And Alex will be back to do another Q&A in maybe next month or so. But it's gonna start getting busy. Okay, I have a question about Neelam. Then I want to ask you about when your stand's opening. But Neelam, is Neelam the only proven Indian flavor mango for inland without spraying? And what
No,
about
no,
Sunperia
it's
and
not.
Nicaragua?
Yeah, no. The sunrise will fruit inland without spraying for sure. And besides that, amongst other Indian flavored stuff, you've got Little Gem, even St. Maui can fruit um, in inland because I had a tree in Loxahatchee and it fruited over there. Besides that, I'm just racking my brain for some other Indian. Kesar can fruit out there. So no, that Neelam is not the only Indian flavored mango that can fruit in humid conditions. It's certainly not a long list, okay, compared to some of the other varieties like mangoes with Thai flavor and into Chinese flavor and so forth. They have a longer list of those that can fruit under those circumstances, but it's definitely more than just Neelam.
Okay. Well, tell everybody what we're expecting with this mango season in terms of when are you going to open? When are mangoes for sale through the mail? What's happening with all of that?
Okay, so if you've watched some of the videos that we've done at the farm, you probably already know that we had an early bloom, and we do have a crop from that early bloom. So we're gonna have mangoes for sale. Uh, Here we are in the middle of February. I think we're gonna have probably start to sell mangoes either at the end of April or the beginning of May. We'll definitely be selling them by some point in May, and that's gonna be our Edward, our Rosy Golds. Um, we're gonna have some early crop on stuff like Angie and Dwarf Hawaiian. Um, and what else? I mean, we did okay on the bloom that occurred in January. We did reasonably well. Now we've got a second bloom emerging where I expect a lot of fruit during the summer to be coming from. So we will probably start selling fruit on our website for local pickup by appointment by maybe the end of April or middle part of April. We'll see. Um, and then by May, we'll definitely be in full swing, and hopefully, we'll have our fruit stand open by the end of May. Sometimes it's beginning first week of June, but it's going to be a very good mango season. I want to emphasize that to people. I think it's going to be a good mango season throughout most of the state, actually. Even if you got bit by fungus on the first bloom or you had too many males, you're probably seeing or will see a second bloom that's going to materialize into fruit. So I hope everyone takes advantage of this coming season. We're excited about the large volume of varieties we're going to have to offer. Our fruit stand hours might differ this year a little bit. So traditionally been open every day of the week. We might shorten that to less than every day of the week. It might be 5 days a week or something like that. We'll see, but we still expect to be open on weekends and we still expect to ship mangoes. Um, it's going to be a long season. Okay, so we're going to be selling mangoes maybe in April all the way to September or something like that. That's kind of become the norm for us for the last several years. It's we get long mango seasons in South Florida now because of all the varieties and all the various stages of bloom that we end up with. But I hope everyone's encouraged and excited about this mango season coming up and ready to try a lot of different stuff and have an open mind. Okay, remember if you try something the first time and don't like it, give it another chance. Even from your own trees, like remember sometimes the first year something fruits might not be representative of what it's going to taste like in the future. And weather matters too. If it rains a lot, your fruit might not taste as good as it will a week or two later when it stops raining or you're not getting as much overcast. So those kind of things matter too. All right. So other than that, that's pretty much everything that I have to say. And you know, I hope we'll see lots of you this mango season.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed this live Q&A, remember they're on the YouTube channel, Fruitful Trees, and we've done many previous ones and all great questions and great information. So go back and check the others on the channel, Fruitful Trees. And what I was going to ask you was Sugarloaf versus creme brulee. Which one do you like better taste-wise?
That's a hard question. That's a real hard question. I guess my best, uh, I've probably had more top tier creme brulees than top tier sugarloaves, but like they're both elite mangoes. They don't taste alike. They don't taste they don't taste the same. The sugarloaf has like a coconut element. You know, some would say a little bit of pineapple, I guess, because of the hence the name, but more coconut. The creme brulee is an Indian, West Indian flavored mango, to be clear, but a very rich and dynamic flavored one. And I mean, like that's one of those things where I'm out there with my employees, and we're like, we can't wait to eat one when we find one that's, mature enough to pick. Like we're excited about it. So I hope that communicates what we think about creme brulee. But don't just assume that it's going to fruit well for you, because I think that's one that can be troublesome in humid areas too. Okay. So,
Yes, I just remembered a sleeper that I know you're gonna go absolutely. The ambrosia.
yeah, the only thing is that that one we don't have as much. It took a very long time for that to start fruiting for us, but you're right. I mean, like it's it's one that hasn't been talked about a lot, but it's with good reason. There's just not a lot
Okay.
of well, not enough sample size. And I hope, and it's setting fruit well again this year. So we'll have to monitor to see how that does, but like it tastes very good. It's a really impressive, and it's late. So, let's see how it does with
Yeah.
disease resistance and everything this year, and hope for another good season from it. So maybe we can start grafting more of them.
Yes. All right, everybody. If you like this alive Q&A about mangoes and just all tropical fruits on Tuesday, depending when you're watching this, if you're watching live or not, this Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to try a live Q&A during the daytime with Chris from Truly
Truly try.
Tropical. So join us for that same channel here, 1 p.m. on Tuesday. But if you aren't able to join us live, at least post your questions below. It's already up on the link. Just go to the live on the channel and post your questions below. You can post the questions now in the comments or and wait and get your answers. But join us live. It's going to be wonderful. And Alex, thank you again for your time and have a great mango season. And I'm excited about the Florida Mango Festival coming up on June 29th. We're going to have an amazing time and we look forward to seeing everyone there. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for staying up and watching and interacting with us, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody. All right. Okay, we're off the air. Thank you. It was great, man.
Cool. All right.
Very good.
Well,
Have a let me know. Have a good night and